We are taking you live now to the day of the Telegraph Future Sydney Bradfield Oration. We're hearing now from the New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet.
Getting in New South Wales that will come from all of that work. I acknowledge Leader of the Opposition, Chris Minns, and my parliamentary colleagues on both sides of the parliament, Robert Thompson, Michael Miller, Ben English, the Bradfield Board of Governors who are here, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the Daily Telegraph for hosting the Bradfield Oration once again. This is one of my favourite events because it combines two things that I love: bold ideas and our beautiful city. In fact, every year, new ideas are born in this room from people who are here today. And they change our city and they change our lives for the better, just like Bradfield did. Now, let me start off by saying something that should have no disagreement in this room. I believe that Sydney is the greatest city in the world. I love this city and everything about it. Now, as Ben's pointed out, it's not perfect, but I even love its imperfections. We are Australia's first and greatest city. We are the heartbeat of the great southern land. We are the face of Australia to the world. We are unique in that even though our feet are planted firmly in home soil, our perspective is global. Now, with respect to Catherine, if you ask people from Melbourne, who's your competition, they'll most likely say Sydney. But for Sydney, our standard isn't local. We're competing with the world's greatest cities like London, Tokyo, New York and Paris. But our biggest threat isn't another city. Our biggest threat is the status quo. Our tendency to rest on our laurels and just accept things the way that they are. I think the life of John Bradfield offers us three important lessons to overcome the risk and the rightful place as one of our world's great cities. The first lesson is that you have to persevere because change is hard and change takes time. The Harbour Bridge wasn't built in a day. Back in 1815, it was a bridge first suggested by the convict architect Francis Greenway, before Bradfield then picked up the idea in 1900 with his own vision. But it wasn't until 1923 that construction actually started. And during that time, it wasn't actually all smooth sailing with opposition and protests every step of the way. But Bradfield just kept going and eventually his vision was realised. This is a lesson that our government has learned as we have turbocharged our building boom. Over the last 10 years, we've built schools and hospitals, metros and motorways, the highways and light rails, parklands, museums and stadiums. And we've seen that making change is like waging a war on the visible, trying to move people to a future that they cannot yet see. In fact, there has been opposition to almost every project that we have built, from the North West Metro to North Connects, the Sydney Football Stadium to Sydney Modern, the light rail to the powerhouse, even hospitals in Tweed, the Northern Beaches and Prince of Wales were met with opposition. I even tried and have put a bar on top of the Mitchell Library, and even that was opposed. But just last week, I was underground at the M4, M8 tunnels. Now, that is a road that will open very shortly. And when it does, you can travel from the Blue Mountains all the way to the airport without passing one single traffic light. And yet, even as this new road is about to open, there are still members of our parliament who oppose it. But that shouldn't be surprising to any of us, because even during Bradfield's day, the ferry operators protested the Harbour Bridge, the horse and cart operators protested cars, and a certain other newspaper famously opposed the Sydney Opera House. But in the heat of short-term politics, no argument is more persuasive than the argument for doing nothing. And that is why perseverance is so very important. The second thing that Bradfield can teach us is that you need to be bold and you need to dare to do things differently. He did this by choosing an arch design for the bridge, a decision at the time that was described as difficult and as daring. Our government has applied this lesson to the ways that we have funded and built city-shaping projects. But great cities aren't built with steel and cement. Great cities are ultimately about people, and I want to create a better future for every single person in our great city. So let me give you three examples. Health, to start with. Everyone knows the entire health system in this country is under immense pressure. But just building more hospitals and hiring more nurses is not going to solve the problem. So we're doing things differently and stepping up, whilst providing record funding. Millions of people across our state need a regular script from their GP. It doesn't make sense for it to clog up doctors' surgeries just so people can get their regular medication. So we fixed it. And for the first time, we're allowing pharmacies to give scripts directly to regular patients. Now, like the boat operators in Bradfield's time, the AMA, or I call the Doctors' Union, said our changes would spell the end of general practice in this country. How wrong they will be. Alongside Victoria, we're adopting a new solution to turbocharge GP practices with longer hours and a one-stop shop of services to take pressure off our emergency departments. On home ownership, we are removing stamp duty for first home buyers. It was 150 years ago, some enterprising mid-level Treasury bureaucrat came up with the idea of stamp duty in New South Wales. It was set at 10 shillings for every £100. A stamp duty on a stamp on a piece of paper that has stopped a generation of home ownership. Today, that one decision, unquestioned for generations, is now responsible for 1/3 of our state budget tax revenue. Our policy to make stamp duty optional for first home buyers has already, as expected, unleashed a barrage of opposition. But I look at my kids and I look at their prospects of home ownership, and I think that we can't let some 150-year-old tax, the most inefficient in the world, just continue to lock people out of home ownership in this great city. Now, education. We have to be willing to do things differently if we want a brighter future for our children. So we're changing the old 9 to 3 school hours because what worked 100 years ago doesn't work today. We're introducing an entire year of education in our school system called pre-kindergarten. We're paying our very best teachers more. We're adding practical trade subjects to the HSC, and we're introducing a new kind of tertiary education, bringing together universities and industry to get our kids job ready for the future. All of these are a direct challenge to the status quo, the way that things have always been done. If we want to win the future, we must have the courage to innovate in education. So today I announce a new way of preparing our kids for the future. I want kids in our West to be educated and learn from world-leading doctors, nurses and medical researchers. So we're going to build a new $300 million education campus at Westmead with a new primary school and a selective high school for our West. 3,000 students from pre-K to Year 12. The campus will be co-located in Westmead Health and Innovation District, alongside major hospitals, medical research institutes and university campuses, teaming up the brightest minds to support the next generation of leaders. This concept is the first of its kind in Australia. I see these schools not just delivering a future Prime Minister or Premier, I see them as a training ground in our West for our future Nobel Prize winners in medicine and in science. This is just the start, and I want to see this new way of learning rolled out across our state, because doing things differently is the only way to set up our kids for a brighter future. The last thing that Bradfield can teach us is that we must always be focused on having a legacy. When he designed the bridge, he didn't do it for the needs of today. He did it for the needs of tomorrow. He knew that growth would come, both in people and in technology, and he built accordingly. And he himself stated, Future generations will judge our generation by our works. I want our legacy as a government to be focused on the next generation, not the next election. To me, being a Conservative is a blend of stability and change, preserving the best of tradition and innovating everything else. And it has to be, because as Burke said, conservatism is founded on duty, to respect not only those who have gone before us, those who are living, but ultimately those who are yet to come. Our children and their children. To let a city like Sydney stand still is a crime against the next generation. We must preserve and build on this city's unsurpassed beauty and its unlimited opportunity. So let me conclude by saying, I want all of us to live in Sydney and have Sydney as the greatest city anywhere in the world. The buildings and the projects are naturally part of that, but we only build these for our people. I want our city to be built around our families, to be a hub of opportunity for the ambitious and the aspirational, a city that inspires and delights, a beacon of hope and freedom for the whole world, a city that honours its shared past, that maximises the moments of the present and builds that brighter future. I believe today we face a line in the sand about what city we truly want to be. We can stick with the status quo and become overwhelmed by the challenges of today, or we can move forward into a future filled with confidence, armed with the lessons that Bradfield taught us. Persevering when things are hard, daring to do things differently, and leaving a legacy that we can all be proud of. Thanks very much.